All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. I'm very excited to be hosting this MCCA exclusive webinar for everybody today. I know I've been having a lot of conversations with a lot of campuses today or recently around this topic. And let me go ahead and just share my screen so we can start diving into the presentation. But like I mentioned, we've been having tons of conversations about focusing on optimizing scheduling to accelerate student progression. And we brought two very great, insightful, thoughtful leaders here with some great perspectives to talk through their firsthand experiences on the topic today. And we'll have them introduce themselves here in just a moment. But first, just to kind of kick things off here, I'm Lauren Fontana. I work on our partnerships team here at CourseDog. I'll be kind of guiding us through the presentation today. I've worked with CourseDog for a little over 2 years, but prior to that, I've spent probably, I guess, a decade supporting institutions with SaaS operational software, just helping to meet initiatives that they have. So speak every single day to industry thought leaders like Dr. Nealon here and Jody, just trying to understand, hey, what's going on in the space of higher ed and trying to educate folks on emerging issues that we're seeing in the space. So work with tons of MCCA schools, excited to have this exclusive webinar. Just because I know you guys are great at collaborating and sharing knowledge, and I know that these two have some great perspectives. So that being said, Dr. Nealon, if you want to kick off some introductions, and then we'll round it out with Jody here.
Sure. Well, please let's call me Michael from here on out. I can't really be Lauren, Jody, and Dr. Nealon. I don't know. That happens.
I always call you Michael. I didn't know whether we're going to be official here.
Yes.
Good.
Please, everybody feel welcome to please do that. My name is Michael Nealon. I'm the Vice President for Academic Affairs and the Chief Academic Officer at Henry Ford College. Serves the learning community of Dearborn, Michigan, and portions, obviously, of the greater metro Detroit area. You know, at LCC, our mission is all about transforming lives and building better futures. And in that mission statement, we say one thing very, very proudly, that we measure our success by the success of our students. And so I'm really excited today to be talking about ways that we can really serve our students that we might not always think of as critically important for their success, because it just seems like stuff that we do. But I hope at the end of this time, you'll recognize that putting some really good strategic thinking into course scheduling is a great way to improve student success. I'll turn it over to Jody.
Good afternoon. I'm Jody Littlefield. I'm the Executive Assistant for Academic Affairs at Lake Michigan College. We're located in Benton Harbor, Michigan. And I've been fortunate enough to work at LMC for about 25 years now and have really learned a lot in Banner over those years. And so I'm our kind of super user for CourseDog integration at the college. So I hope to help give you some input and some guidance in today's session.
All right. Thank you both. I appreciate you both being here and really excited to start diving into the conversation. And just to cover a really quick introduction or agenda here, I already covered some introductions, but we'll dive into why scheduling has been a really hot topic lately. We'll speak to how institutions have been seeing that, or really seeing that urgencies are becoming more and more needed. And then we're going to talk about some strategies that Lake Michigan and Henry Ford have actually put into place and are starting to implement today. And then we are going to save some time for questions. So do feel free to put in the Q&A during the presentation here today. Any questions that you have throughout, if we have enough time at the end, we will certainly get to as many as possible. With that being said, we're going to start with new urgencies for scheduling optimization. And these are really going to be broken out into two buckets today. The first is going to be focusing on how scheduling can impact students. And then we'll shift gears and start talking a little bit about the institutional impact. And just to kick things off, I want to talk about the effect that students feel. Obviously, students are always the number one priority. We want to make sure that we're setting them up for success and removing barriers wherever we can. And as Jody and Michael are going to kind of dive into here today, we really want to make sure that scheduling is not a barrier for them in any aspect that we can avoid. So in a run by Inside Higher Ed on College Pulse, over 1/4 of undergraduates reported that either a required class was full or it was not available when they needed it to actually graduate. And I'm sure we've all either have experienced this firsthand, I know I have, or we've had somebody close to us experience this, or you've either had to personally actually navigate solving for this on your campus. And scheduling is already hard enough for your students with juggling work or whatever really life throws at them. So things like full sections or missing prereqs should not be the thing that's really slowing them down. So that being said, Michael, can you kind of tell me about some obstacles that your students have experienced with scheduling in the past at Henry Ford? And what are some things that you might have felt were to blame there?
Yeah, well, think of this as the word problem from hell. Create a schedule that can meet the needs of over 12,000 students, from dual enrollment students to students who are learning in retirement, 40% of whom can commit to full-time school, but they're not really sure what amounts to full-time. 60% who are all range of part-time, from I can take one class to I can take maybe three, that have a choice of face-to-face, on the ground, online, hybrid, high flex. Hybrid can be 50-50, 25-75, all the way up to 5-95. While your main classroom building is going to be taken offline for 2 years for a major renovation project. Solve for X. Okay. And I mean, that's the situation right now at Henry Ford College. I'm sure that's not dissimilar from the kind of thing that's in front of all of you right now. It's not a what's to blame, and it's not a blame and shame game in my mind. It is, however, all about cause and effect. And we know for a fact that there is no one root cause. And so it's about being able to ask, I think, the right questions, judging from what the obstacles are that our students meet, asking ourselves, which of those hurdles have we actually dragged out onto the track ourselves? And then from there, really asking the question, what is it that is in our power to actually change? So let's go back to something that I alluded to, confusion about what counts as a full load. So in order for a student to, in 2 years, summers excluded, make their way through a 60 credit associate's degree, they need to commit to no less than 15 credits per semester. But even if we looked at our full-time faculty, our full-time enrolled students, how many of them are carrying at least a 15 credit load? Not that many, because federal aid allows 12 credits to count as full-time. There are also influencers that I think have a very important role to play, but it's not always played that well in terms of pointing the students in the direction for success. There's oftentimes misguided advice, whether that's from family members who attempted college, it didn't go so well, and so they're telling you their experience, but that doesn't have to be your lived experience. Friends who have maybe found a way to make the system work for them, and friends who have never been able to divine how college works. We have advisors. I know advisors that actually say to our students, don't take any more than 9 credits because you don't want to get in over your head. You can take this part-time and therefore, better manage everything that's going on in your life. That's a surefire way to make sure that the students time to degree gets extended, and time is actually the enemy of student completion. In fact, research has long showed the longer you spend towards getting the degree, the less likely it is that you'll ever complete. There are, of course, all those external commitments, things that we have no control over. And in fact, in many cases, our students don't have control over them as well. They can be caretakers. They may be working full or even part-time. They have all sorts of obligations because they are more than just a student as a human being. That just defines a piece of who they are. And so it comes down really to course accessibility. Now, here we do have some leverage. Here we do have some options to be able to think critically and strategically about how we can reinvent course scheduling by seeing and thinking of things from the student perspective. So course access is really the theme that we'll be exploring today, leveraging what we can do in that space to be able to create course schedules that allow students to access the courses they need so that they can stay on track for on-time completions. I want to give you a real quick story and move on. I went to school in Vermont, and of course, at this time of year, we'd already have quite a bit of snow covering. And I remember one year, the folks in the planning department of the college were trying to lay pathways through the quad and all over campus. And they were arguing over, well, we should put the sidewalk here, we need a pathway here. What if they all come together in a hub in the middle of the quad? And they spoke out from there. And they spent lots of time and lots of money trying to do that. Someone came up with a great idea. Why don't we wait till it snows? They waited till it snowed, and the students walked where the students felt they needed to, how they needed to get from here to there. All they did then was map the trails that the students' footsteps left in the snow. And then in the spring, that's where they built the pathways. So we got to use that story, I think, in rethinking course scheduling. Map it to where the students naturally are looking to go. What is the quickest path to get them there? You'll be surprised how much of us gets in the way of them. Thanks, Lauren.
Yeah, no, thank you. I've heard many of your stories, but that's one of my favorite ones. That's a good one. And that being said, I know there's tons of moving parts in how we can help support our students. But Jody, can you tell me a little bit more about some additional scheduling considerations that you account for to meet some of your student needs over at Lake Michigan?
Sure.
Mhm.
We have many faculty members. Here, our faculty members kind of build our schedule. So there are our direct contacts with those students. So they're giving that feedback from students saying, just as Michael touched on, that we have students with children. We have students that are employed full-time and have job requirements. We have students that are relying on public transport, that maybe that bus was running a little late today, or maybe the bus driver was sick and never showed up. We have students that are low-income students, and so they have things to deal with on their own side of things, maybe childcare, maybe food insecurities, or even housing insecurity. So there's quite a few considerations that go into it. Even when we look into, excuse me, when we are scheduling things like program requirements, we have courses that are required for, say, a health science program. And now if it's a prerequisite for that program, we're overlapping there. And how do we make sure that those students can have that biology course at the same time that they're supposed to be scheduled for a clinical out at a hospital? We account for those students that are maybe doing a co-op course and have a job requirement that way. A lot of our students here, we have a wine and viticulture program, and we have a local network with MSU that then our students are going out to those vineyards, and they're, you can't really predict when the grapes are going to be there or when those things need to be picked and all the things, the processes that happen with it. So it's bringing those into effect too. So maybe there are some requirements outside of class that we need to think about and kind of make sure that we are scheduling around as well. So one-size scheduling isn't for everyone. It isn't fit for today's students. Many of them have lots of other responsibilities as well.
Thank you, Jody. Yeah, just a couple things to consider.
Yeah.
And that being said, I know that as students aren't the only one who feel the pressures of poorly optimized schedules. Institutions can feel the pressure as well. Michael, can you tell me a little bit about how you worked with your team to prioritize scheduling as a major initiative across campus and get people excited about that initiative? Mhm.
Yeah, well, think think of this. The beginning of this semester, I was looking at a wait listing report. And so I have wait lists that had over 1,200 students that couldn't get into a course that they needed to get into. I also had a list of all of these under enrolled sections or low enrolled sections. At Henry Ford College, we look really for a minimum of 12 students. Um, of course, with the right justification, we could run sections much lower than that. These are 12 students out of a seat count of, say, 30. But those are two ends of the spectrum. And it's just like, well, how is it that we scheduled these courses and we've got many seats vacant and we've got these courses clearly high demand and we've got 1,200 students waiting to get in and we can't actually accommodate them? So you have to think in terms of some of the drivers that then um, uh, figure in as important factors when you're thinking about efficiency of course scheduling. So the allocation of instructional resources, itself, putting teachers in classes that have 6 students while I have students waiting to open up sections. And they may even be, in some cases, there are online sections that we could really open up. So it's not a real estate problem at all, but now it's a staffing problem. I don't have the teachers to cover that. Or you can do that analysis and actually come up with a cost per instruction per credit. So the magic to me has always been from an administrative standpoint, you want to try to get to a place where you're offering the right number of sections such that they all fill to their highest capacity. That's when you can balance all the costs and returns on that kind of thing. And that's when you know that you're meeting and keeping up with demand. Now, how do you get a college, to wrap their heads around that? Because it's always a little bit icky when we think of the business of doing academics. But we have to go about that because our students are reliant upon us to be good stewards of things like their time, their resources. And in that case, it is more of a business model. We actually committed to an academic strategic plan. And in building out that academic strategic plan, we decided that we would look at big levers that you could pull. If I pull this lever, what needs to happen in order to advance so that we go the farthest, the fastest for the most number of students in trying to meet their needs? And so we had 6 levers. The first one, programs, and they all have a question. Programs, are we offering the right programs at the college? Next lever, pathways. Are the program pathways accessible and achievable and affordable? Third lever, general education. Is the general education relevant and integral to our programs and to our degrees? The fourth level, academic support and success. Does HFC provide proven and effective strategies to support students beyond the classroom? Lever 5, scheduling and sequencing. Are courses offered when, where, and how they best meet the needs, interests, and preferences of HFC students? It's baked right in there as one of the 6 main levers to pull. Without it, the whole thing doesn't succeed. It's a critical success factor. The last lever, by the way, is faculty professional development. So we're offering the right kind and amount of professional development for full and part-time adjunct instructors to be able to optimize a plan that looks like the one that we were about to embark on. And so we had that commitment going in. We decided that we needed to try to find a grid in which we could do most of our academic scheduling. And we looked to automate as much as possible using real-time data and, if possible, predictive analytics, so that we no longer lived in a world of 1,200 plus students waiting for a seat that they're not going to get, while there are other students sweating whether or not we're going to cancel the class for low enrollment.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, you guys had a very fantastic strategic plan. It was so thorough. I encourage anybody to take a look at it if you have a chance. And shifting gears, I want to talk a little bit about how we can actually start solving for this. I know we've talked a lot about the challenges. So next, we're going to talk about how we can actually optimize our course schedule. So what we're going to do is start with identifying conflicts for student progression. We're going to talk about how we could start thinking a little bit more critically, and then also how we could use our scheduling data to start informing our program maps and informing our decision making. Really quickly, before we start diving into that, we do have a quick poll question here. We just want to look to understand some of the reasons that you all feel is most common for your students being unable to access the courses that they need. So we are going to take a quick minute here. If you are able to answer the question that pops up on your screen here, then we'll be able to collect that information. We're already seeing a handful of answers coming in. I'm seeing it's kind of spread all over the board here. The most one is classes already being full when they're trying to register is the most common one right now, followed by classes not offered at a time that works for students' schedule. So it is in line with what I hear a lot with my conversations, and I still see some more flowing in with a handful also saying classes offered at the same time as another class that they need to take. So course conflicts, which we'll also be highlighting as we go through here today. So thank you so much for the feedback there, and we'll make sure to touch on all of these as we go through, but super helpful to have your insight as we go into this conversation here. All right. So the next piece here is we really want to look to talk about transparency across departments. So Jody, I know your team made the switch from manual scheduling to platform-based scheduling a handful of years back now. I was just hoping you could tell me a little bit about some of the benefits your team has seen from that change and that experience from your perspective.
Sure. So it was quite that experience. So fast forward, well, I guess rewind first, right? My team, when I first learned about scheduling, we were using an Excel spreadsheet, and there was one person that was gathering all that information from faculty, and whether it be they hand wrote notes on this paper or they emailed them to her and she had to, or that person, and she had to kind of collect them all, put them all together. She entered them all into Banner, ran so many reports, and it just was a really messy process. So then about 10 years ago, we thought, okay, we need to improve that process. So our IT team here built a homegrown system, and that helped a lot. It was able to give us hands-on access. It was an online program, certainly was a little easier to use, a little easier to enter those courses, maybe to see what others were scheduling at the same time. So that was a big help. We realized how helpful it was for each department, all faculty, to be able to see what each department was scheduling and when. That kind of led back into those program requirements and prerequisite overlaps. What we were discovering with that homegrown system was that made it a little difficult too, with some of the technology that we just didn't have in place at the time. It was causing our faculty members to mistrust that system because they didn't kind of see it working as well. So for us, when we switched over to CourseDog, it was just as much about the efficiency of the scheduling as it was getting our faculty on board and believing that this was the right way to go. I'm very thankful that we had administration behind us. We have a small scheduling team here at the college, so we worked together to create training documentation, training videos, to have sessions where people could come in and not only sit there with us, but then drop in at any time to learn the course dog system. So benefits from all of those things. Now we have a faculty that they do trust the system. They're able to, we do scheduling in phases. So we'll give them access to our dashboard. They have, a certain number of weeks to do that. And then we'll have it go through a workflow where then department chairs, admin assistants, deans, our campus scheduler all review, have input, those kind of things. And then we do a year-long schedule. So then they have the whole year to kind of look it out, check it out, to make revisions and additions and edits as we go along. But some of the great things that we have seen from that is in our year-long scheduling, it has certainly increased transparency amongst departments. We're having many departments meet with each other. A lot of our natural sciences faculty members it's a regular meeting with our health sciences folks to make sure that those courses that are required for that program are being offered at a time that students can take them. It's facilitated with conversations between the deans and faculty members about student-centric scheduling and where overlaps might be taking place where we just weren't aware before. It's giving us data about those courses that are filling up really quickly, and now instead of maybe trying to fill those spaces with adjunct faculty members, we have used that data to hire some full-time faculty members in areas that we're noticing that there's a big need. So there's quite a bit that it has given to us, and certainly the data has been a big gift as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Jody. And along the same lines of making the switch to platform-based scheduling, we have seen a huge shift to a lot of institutions looking to meet student demand through predictive models and understanding how to adapt to their student needs. And Michael, I know your team is transitioning to that more predictive scheduling model right now. Can you just tell me a little bit and share with the group here how you're looking to plan to leverage that predictive analytics and enrollment trends in your scheduling decisions? I know we've touched on a little bit, but a little bit of elaboration here.
Yeah. Actually, if you look at this slide, it's not that dissimilar from a score pad that you would keep if you were playing bridge or maybe pinochle. Draw a line down the middle, we, they, and you keep the score on both sides. So on the left side here, really what you're looking at is a very we-oriented perspective. Right. So what we have been doing is looking at faculty preferences and building classes that respond to the faculty availability or the preferences that they may have. I can tell you that our practice, certainly our past practice, has been to just take this was fall 24, we roll it, and we use it as the platform in which we build fall 25. So again, we're building new, let's say new-ish, on top of a bedrock that is already in the past. It's not to say that that's wholly bad. I mean, you can do the analysis and look at, well, were the calls that we made a year ago really the right calls? And how can we then learn from and adjust? I mean, that's the beauty of any historical perspective, is to be able to learn from the past. But better would be learning from what is actually happening in real time right now and responding to that. So when we, even in terms of space and the way that we would allot that, there's a lot of territoriality. And so we kind of thought, could we get to a place where all those classes that are really looking for traditional lecture space can be put together, and that we could use some kind of tool that would help us optimize those spaces. Since the needs, I mean, clearly an organic chemistry class has special needs and it's going to be scheduled, and you're probably going to want to keep, that kazoo choir class away from that, English lit class. So, I mean, those things, but for the most part, there's a very large chunk of classes that would be very well accommodated and feel very comfortable any place. So can't we turn that over to some kind of systematized way of doing it? So our move really was away from our preferences and much more towards what students need, driven by demand. You're right, Lauren. We are loading right now and working to configure the course demand projections module, and hoping to see that happen in a really cool way that it intersects and learns from the curriculum and the analytics. Where we can start by looking at what students need this semester in order to continue making on-time progress towards completion, and reverse engineer our schedule from there. Looking at real-time enrollment patterns and trends, and adjusting and opening additional sections when and where they might be needed. When you look at time block popularity, everyone wants to go to school between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. That's it. Our on-the-ground facilities can't accommodate that. But at the same time, what can we do to open up the idea or perspectives that students might have that, there are different ways to teach this course. There are different ways that students can access this course, and they might actually prefer those methods. So that's what we're dealing with right now. And it really is flipping the script where we can anticipate really the needs of the students, offering them the right courses at the right time so that they complete on time.
Beautiful. I couldn't have said it better myself. And then along those lines, I know you've touched on a handful of these points, but I'm just curious, what additional metrics are you tracking over at Henry Ford to understand the impact on scheduling decisions when it comes to retention, when it comes to completion? What other things are you looking at today?
Yeah. Well, you're seeing some of them in front of you all right now. And these, to me, really address certain basic questions. When? So the when basically is look at those high percentage courses and the days in which they currently appear, and use course distribution, especially throughout the day, so I can see where there are highs and lows to actually inform how I can add new classes and where the sweet spots, the sweet spots actually exist. Who so where do we see stronger enrollments? There are going to be needs that certain majors have that are going to trigger enrollments in clusters of classes. So a pre-engineering student, we have over 800 pre-engineering students at college, are going to drive demand for courses not only in engineering, but also in mathematics, also in computer science, and we can start seeing how all those things are interconnected. How? That's actually a question about how students prefer to learn and what pedagogies lend themselves to delivery modes or modalities that can relieve yourself from other stressors, like I don't have the physical space on campus. So looking at course modality from that standpoint also helps us figure out where's a good strategic mix of those so that we're meeting demand and also driving student success. The how many is certainly a question that we have to ask. What is the right capacity? When can we run something justifiably under enrolled? What do we do when the demand is starting to get to the top and we're looking like we're going to have to spill over into wait lists? We're hoping to get to a world where wait lists no longer exist on our campus. There's the why question. The time to completion has you it begs the question why students are not on time. Where are the roadblocks? Where are the bottlenecks? Where are the killer course combinations that if I schedule these two things in the same semester, expecting the students to take them back to back, I'm going to end up with a lower pass rate in probably both of those sections. And of course, always the how long. Can we keep an eye on students making steady progress so that they complete on time? And there's a value back to us too. We also get to count them as completers, and our graduation rate gets to reflect that. At the end of the day, though, I'll just say one thing: data informs decisions. So you're using tools, predictive analytic tools, and as we said, course demand projections. You're using them to provide an opportunity to engage in a strategic conversation. Human beings are still going to make the decisions based on factors like these, but there are all sorts of other needs that the faculty will be the subject matter experts to really be able to weigh out and wade through. I always say when you're looking at the data and then you're ready to make your decision, you have to just ask one question. Is this thing that I'm going to do, is this action going to be helpful or harmful to the success and progress of the students? That's just it. The data helps you to get to the place where you can ask that question about the action that you're going to take.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, asking all the right questions there. And Jody, I wanted to switch over to you here. I know we can actually see here that 2 in 5 students have reported that they've struggled to enroll in classes they need, either because those classes were offered at the same time as another course that they needed. Have you or how have you taken course conflicts into consideration into your scheduling practices today? Can you tell me a little bit about your approach?
Sure. I can even give you a recent example. We had one of our health sciences programs just this semester that early in August, pardon me, we had our advisors come to us and say, hey, this biology 107 class, there's only a few left. The others are full. And the ones that are available now, after we've had this particular program's orientation session and are trying to get them registered, but there's no more biology 107 classes that fit into that health science program schedule. So we had to kind of go back to the drawing board with those, bring those faculty together in a room. Let's talk about it. Can we offer? Can we move around? Can we have a full-time faculty member maybe switch with someone else to move schedules around? Do we have space in our labs? Most of our lectures, all of our lectures, I should say, for our science programs are hybrid. They're doing those via Zoom, but we also have to ensure that we've got lab space, right? So that's one example of what is going on here and how we're kind of bringing that together and starting those conversations. I'm very thankful we have an arts and sciences dean here that he has continued those conversations with our arts and sciences faculty. He has started a committee that he's trying to bring us into a room. When we decided to switch to year-long schedule a few years back, it was a big deal. People were really up in arms. We're not sure if we can do this. What is the right way to go about it? And we have been taking that approach where we are rolling one academic year into the other. And as Michael said earlier, it's kind of the bedrock, and maybe it's not as stable as we need it to be. So now is when we are delving into those conversations, and our faculty members are getting together and talking about when should we offer that science course versus that English course, those type of things. So it's been really great having the information in CourseDog and the data that is there. We have been able to use many of the reports from previous semester. So they're trying to work together. We're trying to get them all in the room and work together. I'm not part of that conversation. I'm there to support. So in my role, I'm supporting on how can we build things a little bit differently? How can we think outside the box to accommodate what our faculty members are looking to schedule? Maybe it's we have done it always this one way and it's always looked this way, but how could it look? How can it be different? Let's think out of the box together and make it schedule in a way that will work within our boundaries. So there's been lots of attention to prerequisite sequences, program requirements, limited offering for some of our gateway courses. But yeah, it all starts with trying to have our students progress and complete and as Michael said, the shortest way possible. So thankful that we have had lots of communication.
Yeah. And they're lucky they have you too. You're great at what you do. I know that for a fact.
Thank you.
And so on top, you talk through a lot of ways that you approach trying to avoid things like conflicts. Just curious, what are some other things that your teams take into consideration for optimal times to offer your courses?
Yeah, so I think previous to having course dog, we had to run Cognos reports and people just were just kind of rolling and this has worked for a number of years and really were scheduling more in a way that was beneficial for faculty members. We didn't take a look at those courses. How often is it offered? We used to say, oh, we're only going to offer this course in the fall. We're only going to offer this one in the spring. We've kind of switched it up over the years, and maybe it's a course that needs to be offered year round and even in the summer. So maybe an adjunct needs to teach it in the summertime, right? So we've gone from anything, when is it offered, what term, what are the prereqs? Is it a course that we're not offering the prereqs at a timely manner so that students may have to take those in the summer but can't start them in the fall? We have considered everything from timing to the modalities to the terms that it's offered. So again, those committees that we've had together over the years talking about year-long scheduling and now continuing talking about student-centric scheduling, it's those. Let's have those conversations. Let's dig into the data. Why are we doing it this way? Are our students responding to that? Even too, in the last couple of years, especially last year, we were very fortunate that we had an enrollment explosion, but then we came to the point where we didn't have faculty to teach the number of courses that we were needing.
Yep.
And it was really hard to turn students away, especially during, this day and age, right? So it's been a really eye-opening experience in the last couple of years. And we were certainly able to then use that, like I said, to make some data-informed decisions about which departments need a larger budget for adjunct faculty members. Maybe we need a full-time person there or a lecturer. So it's really given us some things to think about and helped us inform some of those decisions on budgeting.
Amazing. Thank you, Jody.
You're welcome.
All right. And really, that was the last one we had for our presentation. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Jody, for all of your great insight and knowledge around the topics there. We do have a whole 2 minutes here. If anybody does have some questions, feel free to put it in the Q&A. We did have somebody send one in beforehand that we can help ask before, and if we don't see any come in. So Michael and Jody, I was just curious, how do you prioritize courses when balancing student demand, faculty availability, and room constraints? And that's a couple different things to balance. Just curious on how you prioritize all those moving pieces and your initial thoughts there. I don't know if there's anyone who would like to take that.
We'll give it a try.
I was going to say, I'm going to let ladies go first.
Perfect.
Yeah.
As I stated earlier, our faculty build our schedule. So we really give that decision up to our faculty members. Those are the individuals that are kind of boots on the ground, right? They're talking to our students and seeing and knowing what is it that needs to be covered? How many of that section do we need to offer each semester? Do we have enough adjunct faculty that are going to be able to cover that? Enough qualified adjunct faculty? Do we have the right modality? If we're offering that online, is that the best way to offer that course, right? So here at LMC, our faculty members are certainly the drivers of those decisions, but they are using that information and the data from previous semesters, the feedback directly from students, from those surveys that students fill out to tell them how successful a course was, or to give them feedback about different faculty members or adjunct faculty members, right? So I think it's a hard road to travel. I'm thankful I'm on the software side of things, and that's my brain, and I can get those things. And I'm not one of those faculty members that has to make those tough decisions, because they certainly are tough decisions to make. But Dr. Meehan, maybe you can give a little thought on the other side of things.
No, Jody, I think you nailed it. But there's one thing I would always add that I don't think we do naturally, and that's that we need to marry our course scheduling to our curriculum mapping. Always pay attention to the pathway that the students are on, and ensure that the courses that they need are indeed the courses that you're offering that semester. Now, some programs, that's very easy when they're cohorted programs. In the careers, oftentimes that's easy to do. But you can also be distracted in those non-cohort areas. Let's even say like in the general education areas. The game is not won by having the largest portfolio of courses, on the shelf. The game is won by saying we have the right number of courses that are going to serve the requirements that students need to meet, that will match their interests in the delivery modes that are going to best enable them to access these courses and succeed in these courses. And then you basically marry that out. A lot of times we just think of the faculty and the scheduling in the liberal arts or those areas as that's general education. We're just going to throw it into the grid. There needs to be just as much intentionality in thinking out those, so that the students in those more rigorous pathways can count on being able to get that writing course, or to get that history course, or to get that political science course fitting into their schedules as well.
Beautiful. All right. Well, we are at time. I do see there's a couple questions that came in. We will make sure to answer them as follow-up items. So we will not forget about you. But thank you, Michael. Thank you, Jody. This was so insightful. And thank you, everybody who joined from the MCCA system team. We really, really appreciate it. There will be one extra poll question that comes up. But if there's anything else or any questions that you have for myself, Michael, or Jody, please feel free to send that to me or to them, and we'll make sure to route it appropriately.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.